I am Clara, a 32-year-old woman who once believed in fairy tale endings. 3 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn when I crossed paths with Mark, the man who would eventually become my husband. This is our story. A journey marked by love, trust, and eventual betrayal, all against the backdrop of what seemed to be a perfect marriage. It was just an ordinary Tuesday morning when fate led me to the corner cafe, engrossed in a John Grisham novel. Lost in the world of legal thrillers, I was interrupted by Mark's presence. He exuded confidence yet possessed a warmth in his smile that beckoned me in. "Hey, is that Grisham's latest?" he asked, nodding towards my book. His friendly voice, tinged with genuine curiosity, sparked a pleasantly surprising conversation. We delved into discussions about our favorite authors, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. In the weeks that followed, Mark and I grew closer. Shared interests in music, particularly old jazz, and a mutual love for exploring hidden bookstores solidified our bond. Mark was charming, respectful, and attentive, making each encounter feel like catching up with an old friend rather than meeting a stranger. As our connection deepened, Mark confessed his feelings one evening along the river, his words carrying a genuine warmth. "Clara, I've never felt this way before. I think I'm falling for you," he admitted under the dim streetlights. A rush of warmth enveloped me as I confessed my reciprocated feelings. Our relationship flourished, and 6 months later, during a cozy dinner at my apartment, Mark proposed. The moment was simple yet profoundly sincere, and my unequivocal yes expressed my belief in our future together. However, the joy of our engagement was soon met with apprehension when it was time to meet Mark's parents. Linda, his mother, exuded sternness with piercing eyes that seemed judgmental. His father, though more amiable, carried an undeniable seriousness, especially regarding the institution of marriage. During a formal dinner at their house, Mark's father brought up the subject of a prenuptial agreement, catching me off guard. Understanding the necessity due to past experiences with a cheating ex-boyfriend, I agreed, but with a condition. I proposed a $100,000 penalty for infidelity, a term Mark respected. Our wedding was a beautiful affair filled with laughter, dancing, and promises of forever. The first year of our marriage felt like living in a dream, traveling to romantic destinations, enjoying quiet evenings at home, and supporting each other's dreams. Mark wasn't merely my husband. He was my confidant and best friend. Following the whirlwind of our wedding, we seamlessly settled into married life, surprising even me with the ease of our transition. Our first year was a bubble of happiness, untouched by the outside world. Our honeymoon in Paris felt like a dream, strolling along the Seine, lost in the enchanting city of love. One evening, as we watched the Eiffel Tower illuminate, I asked Mark, "Can you believe we're here?" Pulling me close, he responded, "With you, I can believe anything. This is just the start for us, Clara." Days filled with laughter, romantic dinners, and promises of a future together created memories that made our bond feel unbreakable. Back home, our days settled into a comfortable routine. Mark kissed me goodbye every morning, and I eagerly awaited his return with dinner. Our conversations spanned everything and nothing, stretching late into the night. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, Mark expressed his unexpected happiness, remarking, "I never thought I'd be this happy doing mundane stuff like washing dishes." I playfully splashed water at him, and he laughed, catching it in his hands, saying, "It's all about good company. Marrying you was the best decision of my life." Despite our happiness, external pressures began mounting, particularly regarding the expectation of starting a family. Linda, Mark's mother, would drop not-so-subtle hints at family gatherings, pressing us about when we'd share good news. Attempting to deflect with humor, I replied, "You'll be the first to know when there's news." However, her persistence increased over time, straining me. Mark noticed my discomfort and reassured me, saying, "Don't let my mom get to you. We'll start a family when we're ready, not a minute sooner." Our first year of marriage remained magical, marked by a quiet anniversary celebration at home, where Mark surprised me with a necklace I had admired months earlier. "Happy anniversary, Clara. Here's to many more years of happiness," he said, his eyes shining with love. That night, as we cuddled on the couch, I felt incredibly lucky to have a loving husband, a cozy home, and a seemingly bright future. As our second year of marriage unfolded, the mounting pressure from Mark's family, especially his mother Linda, started taking a toll. It wasn't solely about starting a family anymore. Linda's criticisms permeated every aspect of our lives. Every visit from her became a nightmarish experience for me. One afternoon, as I set the table for lunch, Linda walked into the kitchen and surveyed the spread with a disapproving frown. "Is this what you're serving? A bit simple, don't you think?" Her tone dripped with disdain, and I clenched my jaw, attempting to maintain composure. "I thought we'd enjoy something light today," I replied, but she just sniffed, muttering under her breath about proper meals and good housekeeping. Linda's critical comments extended beyond my cooking. She found fault in everything, from the house decor to how I spent my free time. One evening, while Mark and I were relaxing in the living room, Linda offered her unsolicited opinion. "You know, Clara, if Mark gave me the money he spends on you, I could hire a proper cleaner and a cook." Mark looked uncomfortable but remained silent, which felt like a betrayal. Despite my seething frustration, I managed to respond, "Well, Linda, I'm doing my best here." The most hurtful part was when Mark's attitude began to change, echoing his mother's criticisms in a more subtle manner. After one of Linda's visits, he casually mentioned, "Mom might have a point about the house. Maybe we should consider getting some help." I felt a pang of hurt and frustration, asking, "So you think I can't handle it either?" He backpedaled, but the damage was done. The constant criticisms and Mark's growing detachment strained our marriage. Arguments over trivial matters became frequent, and our once easy conversations turned into tense exchanges. After a particularly heated argument, I found myself wondering aloud, "What happened to us, Mark? We used to be on the same team." Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I don't know, Clara. Everything just feels so complicated now." That night, I went to bed feeling lonely and misunderstood. Linda's insidious comments had invaded not only my home but also my marriage. I began to question if the love Mark and I shared was strong enough to withstand this constant barrage of negativity. As the third year of our marriage unfolded, a sense of unease settled in my heart. The once bright flame of our love seemed to flicker under the shadow of doubt and mistrust. It all began with a series of phone calls, a name recurring on Mark's phone, Jake. I couldn't ignore how Mark's demeanor changed whenever that name flashed on the screen. One evening, as we watched TV, Mark's phone rang again, displaying Jake's name. Mark quickly silenced it, throwing a nervous glance my way. "Who's Jake?" I asked, attempting to sound casual, but my heart pounded. "Just a new guy at work, no one important," Mark replied, but his voice betrayed a rehearsed nonchalance. Mark's behavior shifted. He started coming home late with flimsy and inconsistent excuses. His wardrobe transformed from casual to sharply tailored suits, and suspicions grew. Working late again. I questioned one night, noticing his dressed-up appearance. "Yeah, big project," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Don't wait up." Frustration boiled over, and one day, as Mark was about to leave for another late night at work, I confronted him. "This isn't like you, Mark. What's really going on?" My voice trembled with a mixture of anger and fear. Mark sighed, guilt and annoyance in his expression. "I told you, it's just work. Why can't you trust me?" I shot back, my eyes stinging with tears. Mark left without responding, leaving me feeling more alone than ever. That night, lying in our empty bed, I made a decision. I couldn't live in this limbo of doubt and suspicion. I needed to know the truth, whatever it was. The next morning, I called a private detective. It felt like a betrayal, but the constant worry and uncertainty were eating me alive. I needed answers, and I was determined to get them, no matter what they revealed about the man I thought I knew. The days after contacting the private detective were a haze of anxiety and anticipation. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy while my world quietly crumbled. Then the call came, shattering my last hope. "Mrs. Johnson, we have conclusive evidence. I'm afraid your suspicions were correct." The detective's voice was solemn, heavy with the weight of the news. He explained that Mark had been having an affair. The mysterious Jake was, in fact, a woman. My heart sank as he detailed their meetings, providing timestamps and photos. It was irrefutable. I sat there, thumb in hand, feeling a mix of devastation and vindication. My worst fears weren't just fears anymore. Despite the cold, hard facts of Mark's infidelity, I decided to bide my time and gather more evidence before confronting him. One evening, as I passed by his home office, I overheard a conversation that sent shivers down my spine. Mark was discussing our impending separation with his mother, Linda. "Mom, I'm planning to end it with Clara after your birthday." Mark's voice was devoid of any affection he once had for me. Linda, in her callous manner, responded, "Oh, that's wise, dear. Make sure she gets me a nice 65th birthday present before you drop the bomb." My nausea intensified. Not only was my husband unfaithful, but he and his mother were conspiring against me, planning to use me for one last expensive gift before discarding me. Fueled by anger and resolve, I decided to play along, pretending nothing was wrong while secretly gathering more evidence of Mark's infidelity. The detective provided me with photos, videos, and even audio recordings. Each night, lying next to the man who had betrayed me, a plan began to form in my mind. I would wait until after Linda's birthday, giving them the illusion of victory. When they least expected it, I would reveal everything and turn the tables. As Linda's 65th birthday approached, I put on a mask of ignorance, acting as though everything was normal. Inside, I was a cauldron of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a fierce determination to see my plan through. A few days before the birthday, Linda casually mentioned her upcoming celebration during a family dinner, anticipating a grand gift. "So, Clara, I'm expecting a grand 65th birthday. You must have planned something special for me," she said with a sly smile. Keeping my emotions in check, I replied with faint enthusiasm, "Of course, Linda. I've arranged a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. It'll be a night to remember." Her eyes lit up with glee, unaware of the trap I was setting. "How wonderful! I can't wait. Just a small family gathering, right?" she inquired. "Yes, very intimate and exclusive. Just for close family," I confirmed, my words laced with hidden irony. Later that night, Mark approached me with a hint of suspicion in his voice. "That's quite a generous plan for Mom's birthday. Are you sure about this?" I looked at him, maintaining my composure, and replied, "Absolutely. It's a significant birthday, and I want to do something special for her." Mark seemed appeased, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. But I could tell he was puzzled by my willingness to indulge his mother. As the day of the dinner drew near, I took care of the final arrangements, confirming the booking in Linda's name, rechecking the guest list, and ensuring everything was set for the grand evening. I played the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law, but beneath the facade, I was ready to expose the betrayal and deceit that had been festering in our marriage. The night before the dinner, lying in bed, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. I was hours away from turning the tables on Mark and Linda. They thought they were using me for one last benefit before discarding me. Little did they know I was the one controlling the game now. The evening of Linda's 65th birthday unfolded in a luxurious restaurant, every detail meticulously planned to reflect the grandeur of the occasion. As Linda reveled in the opulence, I played the part of the gracious daughter-in-law, masking my inner turmoil with a practiced smile. As the dinner drew to a close, the waiter presented the bill. $4,500. I reached for my card with a steady hand, my heart pounding in my chest. After swiping the card, I glanced around the table, seeing Linda's satisfied smirk and Mark's uneasy expression. "Thank you for such a wonderful evening, Clara. This is truly generous," Linda said, her voice dripping with insincerity. It was then that Mark leaned in, his voice laced with mockery. "By the way, Clara, I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to let them see my pain. Seizing the moment, Linda chimed in sharply. "Well, then I guess you should leave. This is a family gathering after all." Without a word, I stood up and left the restaurant. With my dignity intact, despite the turmoil inside, I walked away. Pulling out my phone, I swiftly canceled the payment and blocked the shared account, ensuring Mark couldn't cover the cost either. Back at home, I packed my belongings quickly, the finality of my actions setting in. I was leaving this chapter of my life behind, stepping into an uncertain but hopeful future. Soon, my phone erupted with calls. I answered, and Linda's voice, shrill with rage and panic, filled my ears. The payment didn't go through. The restaurant staff called the police. "What have you done?" Her words were a cacophony of anger and disbelief, but I remained silent, letting her tirade wash over me. This was their doing, their betrayal and manipulation coming back to haunt them. After hanging up, I looked around the empty house, a place once filled with dreams and love, now just a hollow shell. I took a deep breath, stepped out the door, and didn't look back. Their calls continued, desperate pleas for help that I no longer felt obliged to answer. I had made my move, exposed their deceit, and now it was time for me to rebuild away from the lies and the pain that had defined my life for far too long. After leaving my marital home, I spent a restless night at a friend's place, my mind racing with what needed to be done next. The morning sun brought with it a sense of clarity and determination. It was time for the final confrontation. I arrived at the house to find Mark and Linda waiting, their faces a mix of anger and confusion. Clutching the divorce papers and the evidence of Mark's infidelity, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. Linda was the first to break the silence, her voice dripping with scorn. "So you've come crawling back after embarrassing us like that?" I met her gaze unflinching. "I'm not here to crawl. I'm here for a divorce." Mark, who announced our divorce a day ago, suddenly tried to win everything back. "Clara, can't we talk about this? It was a mistake, I cut him off, holding up the evidence. "Save it, Mark. Your mistake was ongoing and well documented." Linda scoffed, trying to regain control. "You think you can just walk away and leave us with nothing. You're nothing without us." I laid the divorce papers on the table. "Actually, it's you who will be leaving me with something. According to our prenup, Mark owes me $100,000 for his infidelity." Mark's face went pale, and Linda's eyes widened in shock as they scrambled to respond. I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. This was it, the end of the lies, the deceit, and the pain. "You can try to fight this, but the evidence is clear. I suggest you pay up and move on," I said, my voice steady. Mark looked defeated, and Linda was speechless, her usual bravado gone. With no further words, I turned and walked out of the house, the door closing behind me with a finality that felt like freedom. The calls and pleas that followed fell on deaf ears. I had closed that chapter of my life for good. In the end, they paid. Mark had to borrow from his parents, but I didn't care where the money came from. It was a small compensation for the betrayal, but more importantly, it was closure. As I sat in the lawyer's office, signing the last of the papers, I felt a sense of peace. The journey had been painful, full of betrayal and heartache, but I had come out stronger, more resilient. I walked out into the sunlight, a free woman, ready to start anew. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to shape. After all the darkness, I finally felt like I was stepping into the light.